All right, I guess we'll start with prayer. Father, thank you that you love us and you care for us, and you did not spare the pain of your Son suffering on the cross so that we could so that you could spare us the pain of eternal separation from you. In your name, amen. So, kind of titled it "No Pain, No Gain." So pain is something we try to avoid. It's something we don't want to go through. We find many ways to cover our pain. We try to hide it. Many addictions are simply a form of pain medication. Often we end up hurting ourselves or other people in this sometimes obsessive need to avoid pain. Sometimes these attempts are just a cop-out or a lazy remedy, and sometimes they are a fight for survival. Sometimes it's all we can do to just make it through. But as I was thinking about that, I was thinking the only way we can fully experience the other side, we have to go through it. If we don't experience it, and if we don't feel it, then in the middle of that pain is where God is there, and we experience His presence and His power and His love. So all these things that we try to do to avoid it, I kind of wonder, if I'm trying to avoid pain, am I trying to avoid God? So recently, I smashed my finger. That's kind of where this. I was asked to do this, so I couldn't think of anything, so I went out and got a hammer and just smashed my. No, it wasn't a hammer, but I thought that'd be a good. So, yeah. So I was with my buddy, and I was driving, pulling his equipment trailer. We were done at the end of the day and unhooking it, and some of you guys might know this. If the tongue is or the jack is too high, you can pull a pin, and you can slide the jack down further, closer to the ground, so you don't have to jack so much. Well, it has a little pin, and that pin catches in a hole, and then it stays where it's at. Well, I pulled the pin and pushed the jack down with my hand, and it's spring-loaded. So I thought it had latched, the pin had latched, and anyway, I let go of the pin, and then for some reason I still had my hand on it, and it slammed back up and got my finger. So basically it filled my heart with joy, and I exuberantly exclaimed, "Well, praise the Lord." And also, I've got a bridge to sell you. Okay. No. And somehow my mom knew, because when she said something about, you probably shouldn't have said what you said, and I didn't even tell her, so I don't know how she knows. Mama knows, mama knows. Country song about that one. So anyway, yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't respond with quite so much grace, but fortunately, God is a gracious and forgiving Father. And one of the first things that came to my mind was, well, that was stupid, and it's and then I began to think about the long-term effects of losing my fingernail and the process of growing a new fingernail, and just how that's not just like the initial, I'm sitting there thinking, oh boy, here we go, because I know the whole process. And then I began to think about the long-term effects of losing a fingernail and the process of growing a new fingernail. Part of the old nail still holding on, right? So you either have to rip it off, or at some point you're going to snag it on something. And and I thought there's probably a spiritual lesson in that too, right? I mean, if we don't rip off the old, and having to drill a hole in it, right, to relieve the pressure. I don't know if anybody's ever done that. So I guess you can use a pin too, a straight pin, and I tried that one. It didn't seem to work, so Huh? Heat it up? Yeah, I did that, yeah. It came out a little bit, but anyway, I got the little drill bit and heated it up, and it seemed to work. And I did that a couple of times and with the grandkids watching, so they were all, yeah, they were all, yeah. Hopefully a small lesson for them on being careful with your fingers. And but the bottom line is pain is not fun, but it is necessary. Ever since the fall of man, we've been destined by sin to the ultimate painful experience, which is eternal separation from our Father. And I thought about how, these little lessons teach us they teach us, and they might save us from something worse, Like I started thinking about, it's like, wow, I need to pay a little more attention here. And so maybe there's times where God allows us, I don't know if he causes or just allows us or whatever, to go through some pain to get our attention. But one of the what's that word? One of the predominant thoughts that kept coming to my mind when contemplating this experience and the idea of pain is thankfulness. And thankful that he loves us enough to allow pain to bring us closer to him. And thankful that he loves us enough to not allow us to go beyond. The idea of the reality of God's love began to penetrate the reality of my painful situation. And I don't consider this to be, a lot of you guys are going through pain that's physical pain, physical things that's way more than I'm experiencing. So this is just a small thing, compared to what some people are going through physically. But there's emotional, physical, all sorts of pain that we go through. But the idea of the reality of God's love began to penetrate my painful situation. He did not spare the pain of his son's death on the cross so he could spare us the pain of eternal death. He was not willing, where it says he was not willing that we should die. And it made me think about the pain that God went through. And then I thought about like Adam and Eve when they were in the garden. The pain they went through being separated from God, I've thought, and I thought about that before, but then I thought about, did God feel pain then? Because he lost that connection with man, with us. And I'd never really thought about it that way before. So the sacrifice of his love was made complete through the pain and suffering of Jesus. If we want to experience the fullness of his love, we have to experience the pain of sacrifice worked out in our lives through painful experiences. And then I thought about Mark talking about, thinking about God's love and the pain that he went through for us. I think a couple Sundays ago, Mark mentioned something about if Mike Adams, he'd give up his life for his children. And so that kind of love that God has for us, that he gave up his life for us. Then I thought, there's a cost. There's a cost to his love. And then we are broken people in need of a physician. He doesn't want us to hide our pain. He wants us to give it to him. And then I thought about Robert Rowe preaching last Sunday or something when he said, the church is kind of like a hospital. And it's like we try to cover that pain, we try to hide it, we try to look good or whatever, when he really just wants us to let go and just give him, and we're supposed to be there for each other and help each other. And then once again, if we try to avoid our pain, are we really trying to avoid him? And that was just a question I threw out there, and it was curious for me. And then I come up, here are some thoughts and scriptures about pain. And one of the things was, one thought I had was pain draws you closer to God. It brings us to our knees. Sometimes, pain brings us to the point where we have to come to God. There's no other. And so basically prayer intensifying our need for his strength and his will. And then I thought about when Jesus was experiencing extreme emotional pain and turmoil, he cried out to God. In the Garden of Gethsemane, that's where I need this. Yep. Matthew 26, 36 through 39 says, Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, Sit here while I go over there and pray. And this was before he knew what was coming, the pain he was going to go through. And I don't know, I wondered if he was so distraught about the pain of the cross, or if he was so distraught that he had to leave the people he loved on the earth, because he wasn't, obviously he wanted to stay, he wanted to heal, he wanted to be with us. So that thought kind of came to my mind. He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. And just realized the pain that Jesus was going through. Stay here and keep watch with me. Going a little farther, he fell to his face to the ground and prayed, My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will. So Jesus had to go through that pain to get to the point where we could experience, the love. So pain draws you closer to God. And then, and I thought pain is a part of love. I mean, if you love someone, if you care about them, there's going to be pain involved at some point. If it's loss or whatever happens, there's going to be pain. So it's evidence of love. And then thought of John 3:16. It's evidence or a sign of love. For God so loved the world that he gave. That was painful. That must have been painful for God to give his son. That he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And then Isaiah 53:5. And the idea of the pain of God's love that he gave for us. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. And then 55:35. Okay, I got that one. 53:5, sorry. And then I thought pain makes you stronger is one of the things. And then basically pain is a part of growth. Like I thought about growing pains, but you got to go through hard things to grow. And then I thought of, once again, Adam and Eve in the garden. And then I thought how some memories are painful. Some of the, we try to avoid feeling some memories. And then pain can be a form of discipline of God's love. That's Hebrews 12:5-6. And have you forgotten the encouraging words God spoke to you as his children? He said, My child, don't make light of the Lord's discipline, and don't give up when he corrects you. And discipline, I guess, in that idea, I think that involves pain sometimes. And God, uses that pain to discipline us. For the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes each one he accepts as his child. And then Hebrews 12, 10 and 11. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of spirits and live? They disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, in order that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. God's discipline is always good for us, so that we might share in his holiness. And then another thing, I thought was a little painful reminder can save us from more pain. Then I was thinking about that with my finger. It's like, it kind of woke me up and think about things. So, could I potentially have lost my finger sometime or something because I wasn't, so this might have woke me up to keep me from more pain. And then one of the thoughts I had was some pain is self-imposed and some is caused by others or external circumstances. And then another thought was pain can be a result of action or inaction. And then pain is where God shows his love. Oh yeah, another one was pain is an indicator that there's a problem. So pain is where God shows his love. And then another one I thought was, is there really sacrifice without some sort of pain? And I kind of feel like there probably isn't. If it's emotional, if it's something. And then once again, by trying to avoid our pain, are we trying to avoid, God? And then, humility. Okay, right, yeah. And then I thought about the correlation between humility and pain. And I thought, is it that humility can be painful or pain brings humility? And then 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. And how God a lot of times used pain and suffering with the children of Israel, with his people, to bring them to that point where they did humble themselves. And then on the point of humility, and maybe pain being something that brings humility, I thought about the Apostle Paul. Let's see, right here, 2 Corinthians 12:7. Therefore, so that I would not become arrogant, a thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger of Satan troubled me, so that I would not become arrogant. So it kind of talks about, or Paul's kind of talking about, so he doesn't become arrogant, so it's there to keep him humble. So maybe God uses pain or things in our lives, to keep us from becoming arrogant. And yeah, I guess that's about it. And I was open to, if you guys have other examples of pain, or of ways that God uses pain, or that it, any. I thought, okay, go ahead. Uh-huh.
And each one of us, depending upon where our life is taking us, is going to experience that pain differently. We're going to react to it differently. Some people are going to be better at it than others. And we also have to support one another within that growth and that healing too. And that can be challenging.
Kind of interesting because it makes me think we may not, like when someone's going through something that we might have gone through, we might feel like, well, what's the big deal or something, or, something like that, where maybe somebody else takes it differently.
That even relates to being delivered.
Hmm.
For some, I'm almost 29 years sober. Mine was a miraculous and instantaneous delivery from alcohol. Others struggle worse. But I have seen people that are delivered look at someone else and go, well, if I can give it up, you can. It's not the same for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And, an example of that, and I'm not trying to take your time, but, because I'm gonna have my own in a minute, but, tithing for me is just what I do, period. I mean, it's just, I know for a fact that God has convinced me that it works. It absolutely, point blank, there's no zero issue in fact, we give above and beyond, because absolutely God restores, He puts it back. People argue the fact, but we just know that it works, period. And, but for some, they just can't see freedom in letting go of some to get more back. And it's a war for them. And so, it's hard because it is, every one of us see things differently. And yet we need to be able to be gentle with some of them. Some people are just Dodgers fans, they can't help it.
I was thinking too, Mark, one of the thoughts I had was when your tooth was hurting so bad. And I thought about, what ways, are there ways that you felt that drew you closer to God? Or, that pain was useful for,
I mean, if we're honest in this room right now, how many people pray more when you're in a valley than
yeah,
when you're on a mountaintop?
yeah,
There is historical records for the nation of Israel and for Christianity in general.
mm-hmm.
When God blesses them, they forget who blessed them.
Yeah,
They go back in. I mean, it's a vicious circle, but it's with all of us.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
A little bit I heard good word.
Thank you. Any other comments or ideas, thoughts?
Well, what I was thinking about when you started in the beginning was, kind of talked about, like, we try to do things to fix it ourselves.
Mm.
Or, like, when I was a Christian, it was called self-medicate.
Yeah,
And really, the compassion has to be there to help those people, because that's what they're trying to do. They just want to be numb. They just want to get away from whatever it is that's hurting them. And they don't understand that God is the answer. So the compassion from us has to be there for them too.
right. Yeah, definitely. Makes you think about. All right, well, thank you. Thank you. I have to shut it off. Leave it on.